Hi everyone.
Hello. So again, we're a little late on our vlog, but it's because we're working, so we don't have always the time to make it on Saturday and Sunday. Sorry.
Yes.
But maybe you can see behind us. We're in the beautiful
Nice.
Côte d'Azur. We're close to Nice.
We're in France.
Actually, we're closer to Cannes, probably, but a little bit over on a mountain, and so probably can't see from here, but way there beyond the mountains is the sea. And a few days ago when we got here, the day was beautiful and clear, and there was a regatta going on, and we could see all the beautiful white sails on the water. So we're super, super grateful. We have this awesome job, and we get to see these beautiful places. So enjoy the peace and the
Yes.
birds.
There are maybe many different views. It's just because of the sun. This is the best one, so you can actually see us and see something, you know. But anyways, so the vlog is about. This one is about leading and following, and what it means for us to lead and follow.
So how did we get here? We were talking initially about connection, and we were talking about the difference between technique and style, and then we talked a little bit about how we think about technique and what that means for us. So I guess I'll just do a little fast resume of that, and then we can go to the new. So for us, technique is something that's universal, and it's something that has to do with the body movement, the body mechanic, and physics of our physical world that we live in, and it has to do with you can do a movement in many different ways, but for us, efficiency is really important, because being more efficient means that you can do more things with more ease and more freedom. So we conceive of technique as something that the body has to do in order to move, and that's our individual technique. And then the technique of the partnership, we conceive in terms of the embrace and the types of geometries that our bodies have to make together to be able to have smooth and comfortable and controlled movement. And then in terms of energy use, we think about the types of energies that are required by our bodies to actually move, and that helps us to interpret music and so on. So we never think about technique in terms of, do I step with my toes or with my heel?
Or did I put my arm this way or that
Or
way?
this way? That's a question of style. That's like, how does it look when we move? For us, technique is something much more sort of the lowest common denominator based. Like, what do all bodies require for movement? So
To make something more efficient or less efficient, or we wanna to actually accomplish us just to move.
it's a question of practicality instead of aesthetic.
Yes.
Although when you have good technique, you also have a good aesthetic. So whenever we search for aesthetic, we kind of arrive that way by moving correctly, rather than thinking about like, okay, now I have to point my toes. We point our toes because that's the last part of the push of the standing leg. So it's like, we think about it a little bit differently.
Yes.
Anyway,
That's your resume.
yeah.
So, how we lead and follow? Should we talk? Yeah, we should just talk about us. Because sometimes giving examples of how other people work
It's not useful.
it's not useful. I mean, it's useful sometimes to see la comparación, but it's not necessary. So, when we learned in the beginning, we one of our first teacher, it was like, you have to lead everything. And this is something a little controversial for some people, because like, if you have never experienced, you don't understand what that really means. Neither the followers. And it's literally is the idea of be able to lead everything, but literally means everything. You are together all the time and on all the different shapes. There is not, unless it's a choice, there is not of like a disconnection that she does whatever she wants and then, well, then I start leading again. It's literally being together from point A all the in between and then point B. So for example, you stand on one leg, this is your transition in the middle of the step, and then you are right to the next leg. It's literally being all the time together. And what this help us, besides being together, is like to be able to change the movement at any moment, and it gives us a lot of variedad, creatividad. Can you translate in case?
I think creatividad is pretty clear what that means.
Or variedad.
Or variedad, that's also pretty clear what that means. So leading everything means that not only does the leader tell you which type of step to make, meaning a forward step, back step, or a side step, they tell you the exact place where you need to step in space. Like if this is like a square, they tell you, okay, step here or step here. It's not just step anywhere in this area. It's very precise.
It's not something generalized. It's super specific.
And it's also because we are together the whole way of the movement. They also tell you the path how to get here. Now that's super important. For example, in curved movements, let's say I have a path, right? This is sort of the space of my path. Now I start here, and my leader wants me to step here in this corner. So I can get there in a line, but if I have a curved movement, that movement won't be exactly correct with what we're doing together as a couple, because the whole movement is curving. So if I do this, I'll actually cut a portion of the movement, and I'll disturb the geometry that we have, and we'll have a problem with timing. So because he's telling me exactly which way to go, instead of doing like a direct diagonal, like a line, in that movement he's actually going to shape my leg to have a path of a curvature so that it lands in this particular very specific space. And
it's clear, whatever.
Yeah,
here
sorry.
And there,
so instead of making, I mean, if you see this,
you can't see
you
it.
probably can't see it. So instead of having like, hold on. And instead of having the movement be like this line, he leads the movement to be a curvature. So the beginning point is the same, the end point is the same, but instead of me going directly here by myself, he's telling me to go here and here and here and here and here and here and here into right here. So this has a lot of advantages because it helps us to use these, let's say, curvatures together in a much more efficient way. So that's one thing. And in the beginning, when we learned this leading this way, we learned it in a super physical way.
Like my job, it was to move the follower, and I'm supposed to make her do things, which in the beginning, I have to say, it gave me a great skill. It was like I could almost feel like you can manipulate her legs to your will, to whatever you want.
But so this is really interesting because this is kind of, from what I understand, is the old way of doing things.
Yes.
When leaders used to lead, their lead was very physical. Like, we forget that now because many more women now take classes. We're more sensitive. Technique has really gone forward. Has evolved. But in the past, like, the embrace was really strong, and it was really strong because it was the point of contact on which you would like hold the follower, and then you would basically kind of like shake her like a tree, and you would move her axis like a tree, and that would move her free leg in the directions that you would want her to go.
So we learn a little bit that way, but we didn't completely like it until we understood that once that we changed teachers, then we understood it, because at that moment it was all my responsibility. She didn't have to do anything. She was just there, and I would use her legs to do things.
It was great. I was like, Sarah, you're doing beautifully. Yeah. Ivan.
On the other hand,
I was like, wow, I dance really great.
Yes. But she wasn't really doing anything. I was doing all the job.
Yeah, and I didn't know that I wasn't doing anything. I thought that, like,
that's how it was.
That's how it is.
So the once that we understood that doesn't have to be like that because we're both dancing.
Well, we didn't understand that first.
No, we went to take classes and then they told us
Yeah.
so much that we had some problems that I was like, well, you know, Sarah's not doing anything. Obviously, you're having some problems with this and that.
Yeah.
Because
So this like super physical way of doing it is a little bit complicated with the axis because in order for Ivan to be able to really like shake this tree and control my free leg,
which we don't do anymore.
which we do not do for a long time now. This is how
Many
we
years.
first learned. Yeah, how we
Many
first
years.
learned, like 15 years ago. In order to have this, our axis was like a little bit forward. It was like a little bit like this, because that was an easier position for me for him to actually feel the weight of my body and
Control
know
her body.
how to control it better. But he got this great skill where he could literally like place my foot
whatever I wanted.
wherever he wanted.
And we understood, for example, this is just an example, that there is no like, oh, there are 4 boleos in tango. Forward, back, lineal, and I don't know, or 3 boleos for some people say.
Or like modern bolero with open legs and a non-modern bolero with closed legs.
Like this, and like that's I'm sorry for us it's not like that, and we understood it when we starting to dance. It was like you can do any type of shape of boleos, and boleos like steps, like turns, like there are all these different things that many people don't use, and sometimes even if you use them, some people cannot recognize them. They will think that it's a choreography or something like that. But it's because at that time I believe that people were a little more creative, and nobody wants to be like somebody else. So if somebody did, let's say, a particular bolero this way, this other person will try to either change it or do it, you know, their own way. But more than anything, this way of leading allow you to actually figure it out that every time that if your timing is a little bit different, your energy is a little bit different, the reaction of the follower is going to be different. So you cannot repeat the same bolero every time, the same,
Yeah.
unless you're really accurate, and technically, that now people are more, they can be more consistent.
Yeah, but even then, it would be really, really difficult to have always exactly the same bolero, because if we think about, you know, how a bolero is formed, you have, like, let's say a back bolero, you have basically a back ocho lead, and then you have some type of an energy change, whether it's in the same direction or in the opposite direction. And then depending on that, how much into the back ocho you lead her, and how much energy you put either in the same direction or the opposite direction, every time you will have a slightly different result. So this is why sometimes when you see people and their boleros always look the same shape, you know either the guy's not leading it or the girl's not following exactly. She's just doing whatever she thinks it should be. And also why, for example, you know, standing at a bar, holding on, and then practicing boleros by yourself is kind of like, it's kind of a waste of time in a way, because in reality, the bolero is a response to this stimulus, which is the direction and the energy that the leader is giving. So it comes from something more organic, from the combination of your steps, not from the shape that you're creating with your free leg.
Yes. Obviously, I understand why this happened, because for many people that didn't learn this way, the boleros and all these things, they were more of a, you know, this...
an embellishment.
More of an embellishment. So then, of course, if it's an embellishment, he's not really leading it. He's giving you a suggestion. He's giving you a big sign saying, here, you can do it.
Do something. Here, it's open.
Right? And the music, it has a particular, you know, emphasis. Then, yes, you can choose, and then it makes sense. Practice your bolero, so then when that comes, then you can do it, which is okay. Which we also use, but because we start this way, then we try to perfection it this way, because I didn't like that I have all the responsibility. We find out that actually to be able to really have freedom in the movement and then actually have a choice, first you need to have the control. So thank God, because that was the first thing. It was easy for us. Now for me, let's say if I want to suggest and give her the freedom for her to do whatever she wants, she can always do it. But if I want to be specific, which Sara then can explain how can help her when she done socially, when somebody's a little more specific, that to generalize, then it helps us to be able to change back and forth, to be able to be more in control or less in control, more creative, less creative, however you want to think about it. But it's hard to understand if you have never experienced it. Can you tell them why for you feel that when somebody's a little more clear or more specific, what how it helped you to follow, to dance?
In the end, leading and following, like it seems that, you know, so far now we just talked about like the physical part of like the control, the capacity of the leader to tell the follower exactly where to go.
Yeah, and again, I mean, like,
and exactly the path with which to get there.
And again, we can tell you all the technical points, specific and all of that, but for that we have Tango Meet.
Yeah.
So you can go to Tango Meet and watch of our videos.
You can't quite do it yet because
Not
the
yet.
videos aren't there, but
They're
maybe
not
in a year.
No, in less than a year they will be there, so you can
we haven't filmed this portion yet.
Understand the leading and follow it section. We cannot talk about it. There are too many things that we have to cover, but we are trying to give a big general idea so you have an idea what we do.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So you completely interrupted me, and now I have no idea what I was
We're
talking
about. That I ask you, how does this help you when somebody's a little more specific?
Yes. So initially, this control that we talked about is really physical, but this is why I started talking about the axis. So we were like super forward in the axis, and then because we were super forward in the axis, sorry, I'm backtracking to get to where I want to go. We were super forward in the axis, we couldn't turn. We had a really big problem with turns. And when we changed teachers, our teacher told us, new teacher, next teacher, told us, of course, you guys, you can't turn, you're here. If somebody wants to turn, they have to be here. So
you really want to turn.
If you really want to turn. So we came to like this, we had to change our axis position. And in changing our axis position, we also changed a little bit of that sensation that we had when I was more forward. Because when I was more forward, we were much more aware of the weight. And this sensation...
I mean, it was super physical. I mean,
it
like
was
if
really
you couldn't
physical.
think the way, it was just like...
So when we got here, we were like, oh my God, we don't have that same feeling. And this feeling helps us to be super precise with the leading.
Yeah. So how can we maintain the feeling, but be more straight and up, you know, on our axis, so then we could be a little more freedom on that side.
And also we could turn better, and we can have a better mechanic in our body for the rotated spiral positions.
The spaces were easier.
Our geometries were better in our axis.
Many things changed.
And so basically it took us a really long time to understand, okay, how do we combine this precision with the leading, the sensation of weight of the body, which is not physical anymore, and all the benefits we get from this straight axis, which is good rotation and good geometries in the movement that makes good efficiency. And so when we figured out this feeling of axis and weight simultaneously, we discovered that it actually had a lot to do with how we were connecting to each other. Like how we understood the connection and how we understood weight. And in the end, like the sensation of density, of weight,
that we used to have like this,
of weight, of connection is really one thing. It's like one package. So this connection is there because through this connection we can actually communicate. So to finish
that, so whatever we used to do this, the feeling, we accomplished to do it this way.
Yes. So this feeling here, now we have here.
Open, close, it doesn't matter. It's
so
the same
here
feeling.
It was physical, and here it's through the sensation of our connection, which, like we were talking about before, is the awareness of the other person's body, their axis, and their energy through the floor, and how they manage their energy for the movements. Yeah. So now, when he was no longer like physically moving me, now he can be just as precise in where he wants me to go.
But the difference is that I didn't have to move her anymore. We were moving as one thing, because understand the old way was Sara, she's there in a really passive way, and me, I have to push everywhere to move her and do all the things. And hopefully I did it okay.
Push like through my body.
Yeah, pretty much. And then when we changed, we felt like we were a little more independent.
Much more independent.
Much more independent. where her job is to match my energy and the direction that I'm giving her, but she's the one that has to move to the specific timing that I'm giving her, a specific place that I'm telling her, the specific, all the specifics that I can give her, and then we can move together as one.
So this is kind of, this is like a lot of stuff to unpack, and hopefully it's going to be logical and it's going to make sense for you guys.
I hope.
Because it's, for us, it's like one whole and it's all connected. So it's really difficult to sort of parse it out along logical lines of thought, but I'm going to try. So this is when we start to kind of start talking about active following and what that means. Some people, if they're not so precise in their lead, active following comes to mean a sort of a compensation of the follower for the lack of leading skills of the leader. Meaning, oh, you have to be an active follower. Meaning, like, you have to know the steps and do them yourself.
Because he's not really leading.
Because the guy is not really telling you exactly what to do.
He's giving you a big idea of it. Step around that way and then around that way.
And so you need to know, okay, when I step around that way, it's probably going to be a turn or some kind of a step like that. So I'm going to do a movement like this. For us, active leading, active following has a completely different meaning.
Yes.
Active following means that, like, we are a two-man crew on a boat. And it just happens to be that most of the time, Ivan decides where we go and how fast.
I initiate.
He initiates. He says, okay, Sarah, we're going southeast at 40 knots, right? But we're both crew. Yeah. So we both pull up the sail, we both steer the boat, like we're both responsible to make the movement happen.
Yes.
And this also means something else. That means that if
we're both responsible.
We're both responsible, meaning that, like, if he puts 100% of energy, I put 100% of energy. If he tells me, Sarah, go southeast, it's my own legs and my own movement and my own body that's going there. He's not physically pushing me there. So this also means something else. As much as he is paying attention to me and communicating to me what he wants me to go, as much as I'm paying attention to him and he's communicating to me where he wants me to go, he is giving me the same attention that I'm giving him, and he's also paying attention to the response that I have and whether I'm going or not, or if I want to change something or do something different.
Because I cannot assume, again, because this is not forceful, it's not that I'm do this, I give her the energy and the precise place and the timing and then I move with them. I cannot assume that she's going to do it because she knows the step or because I'm moving her. So I have to pay attention to her from point A, all the in between, like I was saying before, until we arrive into the next leg, and like that through the entire dance. So by have to work this way and paying more attention to each other, like we mentioned on other videos, attention equals connection. So you have to be super connected and super attentive to the other person all the time to be able to accomplish any of these things. And it won't matter how close or far or style you're dancing.
Yeah. So what this gives us is actually a capacity to communicate both ways. Mm-hmm. This is not like it's not like he is just sitting there and controlling me and telling me what to do, and I don't have any freedom. It's actually quite the opposite. It's because he's paying so much attention to me, and he has to be. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, sorry.
And he has to have so much focus on my movement. Actually, if I want to change something, if I want to embellish, if I want to do the music in a way that maybe he doesn't want to, but I really want to express it, he has to follow me. So we do this exercise where we sort of switch lead and follow as an exercise. And not that I'm leading, but I'm moving and he has to follow me. That actually, as much control as he has, as much control I have. And it's super strange to explain if you don't have the experience of it, because there's no force in it, there's no physical stopping or blocking of anybody, but the level of communication is so deep that actually I can change the timings of the movement that he's leading. And he's still leading the movement, but I am dictating the timing. Or let's say he wants to do something in particular and I want to change the direction completely, I can do that. Or let's say I want to do an embellishment that's not within the timing that he's giving me. It's sort of like I'm making the time for the embellishment. I can actually tell him, you know what, now we're gonna have to slow down because there's something in the music that I really want to express, and you're gonna have to wait for me until I'm done. Okay, now I'm done. It's your turn again. Yeah.
And this is hard sometimes to understand, but for example, if some of the girls that I have ever danced with are listening or whatever, sometimes there is a misunderstanding. Like for example, when I could be a little more specific, some girls they can take it as like I'm a control freak. And yes, I could be a control freak, but that doesn't have to do with tango.
That's just his personality.
Yes. It's just like when I feel that the follower is not reacting with the same energy that I'm giving her, then for me to be able to accomplish, if I really want to accomplish a particular timing on music, then I will have to compensate. So I will have to put more energy, and you will feel like I'm literally grabbing your foot and just putting it there.
Sometimes we call that alien leg.
Yes, that was a...
Thank you, Amaya.
Amaya for the name. And it is a possibility that sometimes when you know, it helped me to be able to dance with any level and of dancers. There are
any energy level, let's say.
Yes, if the follower is not putting the same energy and we need to accomplish a particular timing because of the music or whatever, and I really want to make sure that we make it, without forcing her, I can compensate with the energy and the direction to be more specific to accomplish into that. So there the follower could feel like I'm a little more in control on that sense. But if I'm not really specific and I don't really want to, you know, it's not a big deal that we accomplish that on music, then I will adjust to her energy, to her timing, to then go with her. So sometimes if he feels that maybe I'm a little more controlling you, that might mean that you're not really moving yourself, so then I have to help you. And then if it happens on the other side that you feel like we're more together, it's because I'm not compensating as much on that sense, on terms of the energy of being specific, and I'm just following you. Which this is the good thing, I'm sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
that allows you to be able to do different things. You need somebody to be more precise in a particular step, you can do it, or just follow her a little bit more and still be specific. I mean, like, it just give you a big range of options.
Yeah. So for me, in terms of following, the same way that we think about a technique as being something universal and something that cuts across styles and is not style specific, we think about leading and following also that way. So because in our technique we don't think about style, in our lead and follow we look for non-style based information to know what to do. So for me as a follower, I'm not paying, what I pay attention to in the leader is not what it is that he's doing. I'm paying attention to the energy level that he has in his body and the direction that he's taking with his energy. That's it. That's all I pay attention to. So I don't care if I dance with somebody who dances nuevo, if I dance with somebody who dances super salon, if I dance with somebody who dances milonguero. What I focus on in that leader is always sort of the same thing, because that information is always universal, and I try to move with the leader as much as possible. I try to step at the same time as he does, so we have as little dissonance in the movement as possible.
Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
Also, what my experience when I teach my students, mostly followers in this case, because what Sara is talking about, it helps you to understand this way, it won't matter what's the coordination of the leader, like if the coordination of his walk is more correct, less correct, if he really uses the ground as much or not as much, if he leans more forward, less forward, like regardless of his position of the body, the style and all that, it will still help you to still understand what he wants and eventually compensate if it's necessary, because the followers also do that.
Yes, we do that a lot.
If you try to understand it in this more like, I don't know if you should say generalized,
Universal way.
more universal way to communicate with each other and lead and follow.
Every time you say something, I get lost, I get off track.
Jesus. Because you're not paying attention to what I'm saying.
Totally
you're just like, yeah, sure. You're like,
I just think you're saying the
you
same
just
thing.
understand something, guys. We have a jacuzzi right behind the camera. Yes, we have a gym here, and then we have a pool right here. We're like under the pool in a way.
It's hard to focus.
It's hard to focus for Sarah. And she heard about lunch, so sorry.
Yeah, so for me, it really doesn't matter what style the guy is dancing. My focus is always on the same thing, and regardless of how he's moving, I always respect the body mechanic that I have, because for me it's the most efficient, and it interferes in the least way with the leader. So I always want to have a sense of freedom in my movement, and I hope that the leaders that I dance with also feel free in their own movement. Sometimes this can be problematic, but it's problematic only with leaders who use me to move.
Yes.
If I dance with somebody who needs to lean himself on top of me for his own movement, then they have a problem, because they're not going to be able to use my arm to push off of themselves, and they're not going to be able to use my body to
push against each other.
Push against. So that's probably the only thing that people who have difficulty to dance with me. But I think, hope.
Which is funny, because the idea of this is like you shouldn't have any problems with anybody else dancing, but maybe some other style might have a problem dancing with somebody else. For example, if you are used to dance really milonguero, and then you want to dance with somebody else.
But milonguero where weight. No.
Yes.
Milonguero where you use the weight against the other person. A
Yes.
lot of people who dance in close embrace, they have
Yes.
the good people who lean forward with their torso, they don't actually often have any weight at all in
the good
their chest.
milonguero dancers, have experienced many dancers like that. You don't feel that they push you
At all.
There is no pushing. They feel super
They have this
light.
position, but there's
There's
no
no
actual pressure,
Actual pressure.
physical pressure. No.
So if you use it, I forget what was my point. You use the pressure.
You might have a hard time
Dancing, let's say, when somebody that dances more upright, more salone or more tango nuevo, and then you will say, oh, I cannot dance with it. So that, for example, it would be
a limitation.
A limitation for your way of working, and that shouldn't have to do anything with the style or the look that you want to accomplish. You should be able to dance with anybody, regardless of style.
Yeah. So I guess we can resume.
Yes.
So basically, to resume, for us, leading and following happens through the connection that we create with our physical position and the way that we use the ground. We need a lot of attention to connect, and this connection allows us communication both ways, from him to me and from me to him. And in our leading and following universe, everything can be led, including the difference between a sacada and a gancho, and every single different type of boleo you could possibly imagine. And there's a billion of different boleos depending on how you, let's say, combine direction and energy. And this is the case for anything. This is the case for where you cross. If you cross here or here or here, that has to do with what is being led, not how the movement is.
And the most topic that many people talk about, the turn. You should not have to know that you go first. Forward, side, then back, then side. You are supposed to lead all of that.
So every step in the turn is led. There's no assumption, okay, I'm entering the turn, now she does the turn pattern.
Again, that's an easy way for you to learn and to accomplish some things, but with time there is a limitation. That's the only thing you can do on the moment.
How do you change timings? How do you change direction? How do you tell the follower, okay, walk side, forward, side, forward, side, forward?
Yeah.
She would have to know the pattern, but what if she didn't learn that pattern? So
you're limited to many things that that you could do, and that's why more and more people are going for some particular styles, and those styles they're like copying, and they're just staying there. They're not evolving. There is no
there's actually like a
personality.
reduction also, because in a way, in order to dance with more people, you have to reduce the number of elements or the type of movements that you do. And so a little bit of what's happening is that people are dancing less steps, and it's not because they're focusing more on the connection. That's a completely false dichotomy.
Yes.
Because you do less, it doesn't mean that you're more connected.
No, it's easier in the beginning for sure, because you're doing less, so you can focus a little more in the connection. But on the end, that connection it just stays there, because understand, like the movements that you do and all the different movements that you can accomplish, they all have different dynamics and different energies and different things. So by doing all the different movements, they give you a different sensation in the connection. That's why people used to do different things too. Not because it just was creative and it was cool that this movement looks like this. It gives you a different sensation.
And it's also the connect. If you think about the connection as just a yummy embrace, then okay, maybe if you don't have, like, let's say, a really great skill set in terms of your movement, then you will choose movements which feel yummy, which according to the skill set can be less or more, right? But if you think about the connection as something else, as something deeper, as a way of communication, then actually your connection and your movement, they're intimately related, and your connection shouldn't limit your movement.
No. The whole point of the connection
is to be able to increase your range of movement.
Increase your range of movement, so then you can have a better communication through all the movements
that you're doing. So, so basically, in the way that we lead and follow, yes, Ivan can have 100% control of everything. He can put my foot wherever he wants. He shapes this. He can shape the path of my leg, which is really useful, by the way, because all the really interesting things that happen in terms of like ganchos, boleos, sacadas,
change
all of that
stuff,
that doesn't happen in axis. That happens in the transition.
In between.
So if the leader can control the path of the movement, he really can control those super awesome things that happen in between, that are the really like kind of fun and interesting things. But at the same time, his control is the same control that I have, because of this way that we communicate with each other. So,
and again, if you have control, you can always let go of the control.
You can always be less specific, and have the follower embellish more.
Yes.
Right?
That's a choice.
But if you're always non-specific, right? If you're always non-specific, then basically you're not having a dialogue. Because if you cannot be specific to her, you also can't feel what it is that she does.
No.
There is like a gap. And there's some sort of a connection.
It's almost like guessing.
But you're kind of guessing what she wants.
No.
So the less specific you are capable of being, the less you're able to also receive specific information from her. So in the end, like what ends up happening to people is they sort of have monologues. Like they're talking, but maybe not loud enough, and the other person is talking, but also sort of not loud enough. Or one person is talking, like let's say they're reciting Shakespeare, and then they stop, and then the other person maybe recites Shakespeare, but maybe they start reading from a physics book. And the two conversations have absolutely nothing to do with each other. And so that feeling of togetherness, the feeling of really moving together and really having a dialogue and really conversing isn't sort of there. And how can you tell this sometimes? You can tell by how together people step, how together they are in the movement. Not only how blissful they look with the embrace.
Yes.
You know, you look up here and it looks like it's candy and sugar-coated almonds and whatever. And then you look at the legs, and the legs are like on a different planet. So that tells you a little bit about how really they're moving together, how really they're communicating.
Yes.
Anything else?
No, I think for now it will be plenty. Again, hopefully when you
Yeah,
get to
sorry.
see our Tango Meet videos, you can understand a little bit better.
Yeah, and active following doesn't mean the follower doing whatever she wants and the leader just trying to catch up.
No.
Active following means that you're an active participant in this communication.
So in a way, you move as active with the energy and the direction that your leader is giving you.
And then if there's something extra that you want to show, something extra that you want to tell him, you have that capacity, because your body has just the same amount of energy and the same capacity of movement as his. Basically, you're not a tool of the leader.
We're both dancing, we're both expressing ourselves and having a communication.
And we're both free.
Yeah? Yes, let's go to the pool. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We look forward to your comments as always. We'd love to hear from you, so let us know what you think.